Gentlemen, the time has come once again to discuss things.
Alright, you ready?
Yeah, ready.
Alright, hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Geeky Gentlemen Fan Film Reviews. Rasco, what are we reviewing today?
Fan film, Teen Titans BirthRight.
Indeed, and this is one of those weird cases where I don't think the person that posted this is the person that made it. I looked through that channel and they have a lot of fan films from like different creators posted there. Mm-hmm. But when I Google or when I search for the production company named in the opening credits, I found another channel, and I think it's the same guy that played Superboy in this. But I couldn't find this video on his site or on his page. And I know this has happened where like a fan film creator, like the Spider-Man, what was that one with the action figures?
Spider-Man Resurrection.
Yeah, like, I know, like, this has happened in the past where, like, a fan film creator later decided they weren't proud of their work and took it down, but someone else had already downloaded it, and then they re-upload it.
Yeah.
And that's always, you know, it's interesting to see how the internet kind of takes possession of these things, and the people that create it can't really walk away from it, necessarily. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know, I found that kind of just fascinating little background drama behind this one.
It lives.
Mm-hmm. What did you think of this one, Rasco?
I didn't really like this fan film. I'm partially. This is hard for me to talk about because I don't know anything about what this is pulling from. Like,
I know very vaguely what it's pulling from, and it's funny because I wouldn't, if not for a video I did with Steve a month or two back, talking about Connor Kent's Superboy.
Okay, yeah.
I would have no idea what the hell is going on if not for that.
Well, that's the only thing I knew about it going in, just character-wise. I'm not lost. I just have no idea where this is pulling from, what specific story. Obviously it's called BirthRight, but I don't know where to find that. I just absolutely don't know.
Yeah. In the description, it even says which issues it's pulling from and adapting.
Yeah, see, I didn't look at that.
Yeah, I thought that was kind of interesting to do because we've had a couple where it's just been a straight adaptation.
All right, well, that answers my question entirely. Then I only had to look there. All right, answered it.
There you go.
Know where it's coming
look
from
the
now.
Description. Yeah. No, if I'd watched this a couple weeks ago, I'd been like, "What the hell is Lex Luthor talking about? Calling Superboy his son?" I knew Superboy was a clone of Superman. I did not know until recently that he was a clone of Superman and Lex Luthor, so they basically had a baby. Superboy has two dads. I was not aware of that information, and so, watching this, I feel that they do an interesting job of communicating that, how Connor Kent would react to finding that kind of information out.
Mm-hmm.
But I kind of agree with you. I did not care for this very much. It has a very unique problem with fan films that I don't think we've ever had before. Where we talk about acting in fan films, and we often talk about, the actors, no matter how good they are, they're usually on the younger side.
I knew you were going to say this.
It's normally, you'll have Clark Kent played by, a 17-year-old or something, but he's supposed to be Superman, not Superboy, and, that just happens a lot. Yeah. Here we have Superboy being played by a guy who looks a little too old to play Superboy. Same for Wonder Girl. They just look a little too old for the role. They look like they're, mid-20s.
No, yeah, that's what I was he looks like he could play, a lot of different ages.
Yeah.
He didn't look specifically young, but he could have played like 20s, or he could have played like early 30s. Like he could have been in a few different areas, right? But it didn't look quite young enough.
Yeah, especially for something called Teen Titans, right?
Yeah.
And so that was just a really unique skew, and I suppose there's no real justification to say that it's a problem when we don't consider it really a problem with younger actors playing much older. But just to see him in this, I was like, wow, that guy is not a teenager. I found that really funny. But also the acting is... This is just way too heavy of material for these actors, I think.
Yeah, it's kind of this whole fan film's kind of like this big like emotional payoff to like a story that we haven't been following. And so it's like all of the emotion and the fact that like we don't know the story, having not read it, it's like it's just the weight's not there. And so it's kind of hard to watch something that you're just not in all the way with yet because you just missed so much of it. And it's kind of a choice issue there. It's like, why this isn't necessarily the best thing to choose this specific section to adapt. You probably shouldn't choose this because it is literally a lot of like revelation and payoff to stuff that we haven't been following.
Yeah, and I mean, if you've been following the story in the comics, I'm sure that's better. But at the same time, I have no investment in these actors whatsoever. The guy that plays Lex Luthor is pretty all right.
Yeah, I agree.
The guy that plays Connor Kent is okay, at best. And then the Wonder Girl is just flat. No emotion.
There's some Tommy Wiseau flashbacks there.
I don't want to go that hard on it, but man, she's got like... She has this line where she's just like, "What's going on, Connor? What did you do to him?" I'm like, you just saw your friend trying to kill Lex Luthor. That should be like a big deal. And it's just, there's no emotion put into it. It is such a flat read.
Yeah.
And you know, normally I don't consider acting too big a problem in a fan film if it feels like at the very least you tried. And I'll give the other two actors a little credit because I can tell they're actively trying. But it feels like, and this is going to sound mean and I don't mean it to, but it feels like they didn't know any other chicks, but it's Wonder Girl in the story, so they got the one chick they knew to play Wonder Girl, and she probably wasn't very comfortable doing it.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's one thing when like the acting is like not very good, but like the person's like really acting, right? And I'm trying to think of another example. I don't want to like single out any other examples. But okay, so like sometimes we'll watch a fan film and the acting's not very good, but the actors are like really going all out. Mm-hmm. What's different about her is that like she's not really going all out, and it's not like she's not going all out, and there's not a whole lot of real acting going on, and so it's kind of dull.
Yeah, it is just the epitome of flat acting. It is line reading. It's not acting. And you know, not everyone's an actor. I understand that. But that was like just another level of distracting. How'd you feel about the cinematography in this, though?
I thought this was like they need more coverage. That's what I'm going to say. Like I noticed this when I was watching this specifically, and I've noticed this with a few other fan films that we've watched. Like I feel like oftentimes you notice like a very telltale sign of like maybe somebody who is either who's just an amateur director, or they aren't really so focused on being a director as they are just wanting to make a superhero fan film, is that like you'll notice just so much of this is just like headshots, and there's not a lot of like what does this room look like geographically. So like for example, once they go into Lex Luthor's office, I feel like that whole scene's shot pretty poorly. It's just me, and it's not even like it's shot like poorly. It's almost that like there's just not enough coverage of it, and then like sometimes there will be like a really kind of lazy shot where like it's just Connor Kent's face, but it will be like somewhat out of the center in like a weird way that doesn't look intentional. It just kind of looks a little lazy. It sounds really harsh, but I mean, I just didn't really feel for how this was put together from a directing standpoint either.
See, I don't know. I thought the way this was shot was fairly decent. They did a lot of soft focus, which is a trick I always like to see. And then there's just a lot of subtle details put into it that I really like. Like when Lex Luthor is looking over the city, you see the Daily Planet roof structure in the background. They had to add that in post.
That's cool.
That's like a really nice... And it stays there throughout the entire... Like every time you see that angle of the city, you see it out there. That's a cool shot. There's a lot of stuff like that where I'm like, I don't know, they shot some of this pretty well. They did like... I really like the shot when like Connor Kent clenches his fist as Lex is talking. I don't know. I think there's a range here of quality. Some of it's better than others. Like maybe I just like it because it's a trick I've used in stuff like way back when. But like when Superboy goes to grab the door and rip it off the building, and the camera just goes into his back. I thought that was a really neat idea.
Yeah.
So that they did, like, it was a neat workaround to not have to show him ripping off the door, but getting to just cut to sound and then show the door is now off and he's throwing it.
Definitely.
I thought that was pretty neat.
I did like that. That was pretty good.
I'll also give it like credit, you know, the way that Wonder Girl and Superboy land on the roof. I thought that was reasonably effective for a fan film. They didn't feel the need to go over the top with it and do like the Hancock cracking concrete effect.
Yeah.
So like some of that I thought was reasonably neat.
And I mean like the set, like they were actually on top of a building, which is good, and the office was like a real office as far as I could tell.
Yeah, they weren't just in a room in their house.
That's pretty good. Like that helped
like
a lot.
There's a lot of stuff like that, like little things where I'm like, you know what? That's respectable, if nothing else. That they were able to take the time to go and shoot somewhere and get, like, you know, I don't know how to get to the top of a roof that's not a parking garage. Here in, like, admittedly, we don't have a ton of buildings here in Fort Wayne, but if I go around downtown Fort Wayne, I don't know where I could possibly get on the top of a roof. So that takes some clever thinking or some connections, and so that's respectable that they got those to happen, and it works really well in setting the atmosphere for the film.
Yeah. No, I definitely did like that. I also liked how just the time of day looked really cool.
Yeah, like Twilight, and it's like kind of lighter and then darker just a couple shots later, and it looks good.
Yeah, I like that.
How'd you feel about like the whole audio effect for when Lex Luthor is talking to Superboy when Superboy's at like Titan's Tower or whatever it's supposed to be?
Oh yeah. I don't know. I can't really remember exactly what it sounded like.
Well, it was like all distorted and stuff, as like, because it's pulling from the first Superman movie where Lex Luthor is talking on a radio frequency that only Superman can hear.
Yeah.
Only Superman and dogs can hear. Let me correct that. It's a very important detail. And so they were doing kind of like a modern version of that. It was like unnerving and really harsh, and like you could tell it was causing him pain to hear it. I thought that was kind of a neat little way to do that.
Yeah. And where was that too? Where was that? Like that was in like some sort of like building's lobby, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was supposed to be Titan's Tower.
Yeah, like that, but that was like that was cool. Like that looked kind of like almost like the Avengers headquarters in like the MCU.
Yeah, totally. And it's just like, it's really subtle. It's just, you know, he's sitting in a kind of like an office or lobby chair in front of a bunch of glass windows, and there's like a plant near him.
Yeah, you know, if anything, what this is teaching me, like, if anything, I think people sometimes they get like really antsy and they're like, okay, let's just make our fan film whatever we can get. You know, we can't find a building or a lobby. Okay, we'll just make my living room look like it. Like, it really pays off if you can take a little bit of time to really plan and really dig deep and look at your resources and your connections and places where you can film and things like that. If you like take time and do the prep work to find the right kind of sets and like areas you can actually get to, I feel like it pays off so much.
Yeah, it does. It's little subtle details like that will actually help sell a thing and really elevate it. Because don't get me wrong, I still don't think this is very good, but there's a lot of respectable things in this that just factually are not in other fan films we've talked about.
Yeah.
And that's impressive to do. Like, I remember I wanted to shoot something and I tried to convince my mom to let me into her office building and go into the boardroom they had at their office. And like, she wouldn't do it or whatever, but like, I really wish she would have, because it would have helped make the scene look really cool and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't happen that way. But like, little things like that can really work. We talked about back in October. We talked about the Telltale Heart thing, and it was a really subtle detail, but it just struck me, especially watching it at that when it originally was posted and everything. When the cops are outside the door talking to the guy, and one of them just has their little radio chat or something, and they like turn it off real quick, not even paying attention to what it's saying. That's an effective little trick that just, it pulls you further in, and it makes it feel more natural. Mm-hmm. You know, location scouting, Foley sound effects work, additional sound effects stuff. These are entire jobs in movies that just you do not notice, and that's the whole point. Mm-hmm. Like, location scouting, it's supposed to just fit most of the time. Like, a lot of movies don't have what I would call scenic, fanciful locations. They have locations that just are appropriate for where they are, what the story is telling.
Yeah.
And that's what this has, and that makes it more impressive in a fan film kind of thing.
Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the story, though, because we've been pretty light on that, other than just saying that we didn't feel we got it set up enough. But like, just generally speaking, to Lex Luthor's plan regarding Superboy, what did you think of it?
You explain it to me, because I'm confused.
Okay, the way that I interpreted it, like, especially with one line Lex Luthor has where he's like, magic and kryptonite can hurt him, but if you want to destroy him, you've got to give him something to love and then take that away. Mm-hmm. So, like, what his plan, I understood it to be, was to create Superboy and program him to destroy the Titans and maybe even the Justice League, and then that would be a big middle finger to Superman, because Superman had, like, started to form some kind of connection with Superboy.
Yeah, it's really interesting, because I feel like the fact that Superman's not in this makes me feel really, like, iffy about a lot of that.
Yes, because I agree. Like,
you can make that story, right? And that's a very, I don't know, it's not really overused, but like that is kind of like a classic way of, like, you deal with the foe that you can't really fight physically with some sort of emotional thing, and you have to break them emotionally first. But the problem is, like, you don't know, like, really specifically, because we don't, like, Superman's not in this, and, like, again, this is a thing where it's like, this is on me for just not knowing anything about where this is pulling from, so maybe this is not a problem in the actual story, but, like, Superman not being there, I don't really know if that would really just, like, that seems like it would hurt Superman emotionally about as much as just killing all those people, even if it wasn't Connor Kent.
I don't know, because, like, Superboy and Superman have a weird relationship in the comics where Superboy wants to be Superman, but he's just not. Mm-hmm. And Superman, like, has tried to take him under his wing at points, from what I understand, and kind of teach him the way, as it were, or how to be a better superhero, blah, blah, blah. So he's always trying to, like, live up to that, and there is this sense of, like, fatherly pride that Superman has in Connor Kent. And so to have a story where, like, I think the implication at the end of this is that Connor Kent kills the Teen Titans. Would you agree with that?
I guess.
Yeah. To have the idea that Connor Kent is killing the Teen Titans as Lex Luthor's middle finger to Superman is really interesting. I don't think that we have enough of it. Because, yeah, we don't see Superman in this. Maybe if we got to see Superman's relationship with Connor Kent and this notion that Superman is proud of Connor Kent, that could have worked. But since we don't see that, and it's just supposed to be inferred from, like, vague knowledge of the comics, it does weaken the piece itself.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess this is the trouble with trying to adapt from comics to a fan film, is you really got to be careful about what you pick.
Yeah, like you could, yeah. There are like very few things that feel like they're kind of like perfectly formatted for that. Like it'd be pretty easy to like do like if you got the proper sets, you could like adapt like the Killing Joke really easily. Mm-hmm.
I mean, really easily. You know, you need a fucking theme park, but okay.
Well, you know, you could do it. I think we've seen. I think looking at all the things that, like, oh, City of Scars. Like, if City of Scars can exist, Killing Joke can exist.
Sure.
In a fan film. So, I don't know. I don't know where I was going with that. I don't know why we were talking about that.
Well, just like the way in which you're like choosing a story to adapt.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry,
like, yeah. I have no doubt in my mind that this is probably a really impactful story for Connor Kent as a character, and this like a scary thing, and if you're a Connor Kent fan and you're reading this in the comics, you're like, oh my god, this is so intense for me right now. It's this major revelation about Lex Luthor. I'm sure that's all like really, really impactful. But like watching it as someone who doesn't have like a great understanding of all that history, watching it out of context of that anyway, it just falls pretty flat emotionally for me.
Mm-hmm.
However, I feel like if you did something that is more open, more generally speaking, accessible to a wider audience, it wouldn't be as big a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if you just have Connor Kent, just, you know, I feel like you could do a story of Connor Kent and Robin hanging out better or something like that. Like, I don't feel like this is, like, a big penultimate moment for the character like this is the thing to adapt on its own. Part of a series? Sure. On its own as a one-off? No. Killing Joke is a more limited story. It is a self-contained story where all you have to know is the Batman and the Joker have been fighting for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
That's all you have to know about comic history to really understand the implications of that story. You don't even have to know that Barbara Gordon's Batgirl for that story to work, which is impressive. But like this, you have to know about Connor Kent being a clone. You have to know he's a member of the Teen Titans. You have to know that he's cloned by Lex Luthor.
You have to, like, to some degree, you have to, like,
Cadmus.
know about a bunch of relationships that you don't see. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you have to know a lot about, specifically, like, what his relationship with Superman is like. Because, like, based on Lex Luthor's plan, you kind of, like, get a picture that of course, that there's, like, a relationship there that matters. But, like, you don't know that necessarily going into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that is just undeniably a problem, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird because it's like certain things in this fan film are like really great from the perspective of like planning, like making decisions. Like, okay, we're gonna shoot on this building here, we're gonna shoot this office and this lobby. You know, that's stuff that you do, like that's pre-game stuff that you have to get right. That is another thing that they didn't necessarily get right though, picking the correct story.
Yeah, I agree. And there are like scenes in comics where it's just, you know, Robin and Superboy hanging out on a roof talking.
Mm-hmm.
You could have gotten away with that.
I mean, we just did that Superman one-on-one fan film. Like,
yeah,
they got away with just doing a conversation.
And, like, I feel like the Superboy actor, even though he's not great, like, he's putting in the effort.
Yeah.
And if you were adapting just a story of him and Robin talking and the dialogue was good and emotional enough, I feel like I could have, gotten invested in him even if the Robin actor was at the same level. I feel like I could have gotten invested in that, compared to this, which is just kind of a head scratcher for me.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Rasco, you take us somewhere on this one.
We haven't talked about any of the effects. Well, actually, have we? Besides the door ripping off thing, that was pretty cool. The door ripping off thing was cool.
Yeah, but that's more in camera.
Yeah, that's just more. That's like editing
stuff.
mixed with like a practical effect, just working around things. In terms of some of the special effects, though, like I don't know, they were fine. I don't know anything about it.
Yeah, I thought the heat vision looked pretty good. That you were just showing him, like getting ready to use heat vision. I know I'm reasonably sure I know exactly how they did the Wonder Girl flying and landing effect. And that, I mean, it's not like jaw-dropping beautiful CGI work or anything like that. It's pretty simple. You just mask around the actress jumping through the air and then move it across the camera or move it across the frame really quick, and that's how you get a quick like speed by fly effect. It looked fine. It wasn't like it was difficult to understand that was Wonder Girl flying and then it intercut with her landing. The smoke coming out of the eyes part at the end, though, that one was weird.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like he's turning with it, so that had to involve match movement and layering with masking. So that's a pretty complicated effect to do. And it's not like it's bad or anything. It's just that was kind of a what's the word I want here? That was an undertaking to pull off, I think. That's probably their hardest effect they pulled in the entire thing. Because you'd have to either get an animation of smoke or make one and then match movement, and then do masking with the head, which means masking the hair, and that's really complicated, and I didn't see, like, any kind of layering issue with that, so they did a pretty good job on that effect, I'd say.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, what do you think of their effects?
I don't know. They're fine. They're just really serviceable. I don't know. I really have a hard time ever having an opinion about a lot of effects that we look at in fan films unless they're just like really, really bad. Like unless it's like a still image of Green Lantern just being enlarged to look like it's flying at you.
I will never understand why they didn't just shoot it and do the exact same thing, because it would have looked better.
Your reaction, you're totally right about that.
Yeah, there's nothing, like, laughably bad. There's nothing, like, really wow-inspiring in this one, though.
Yeah, that's my biggest problem with this one, is that I just don't really have a lot to say. I don't really care too much about it.
No, and that's fine, and, that happens from time to time. There's just, like, it's a pretty average fan film, where it's not, like, great. It's also not awful by any stretch of the imagination. It's just kind of, it's okay at best, I'd say.
Yeah.
Alright, let's go ahead and move on to ratings then. What would you rate this fan film?
I'm gonna give this 2.5 out of 5 Superman t-shirts.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty funny that they managed to actually get away costume-wise with just using the shirts you'd buy at, like, Hot Topic or whatever.
Yeah, cool.
was like, hey, this was effective.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go for a 2 out of 5. Lex Luthor ties. Lex Luthor is wearing a good tie. I liked Lex Luthor's tie. So I lied to you earlier, Rasco, because I forgot that I'd been setting up a recording for a fan project. I just somehow slipped my mind, so we're not reviewing 2 fan films next week. Next week, Rasco probably won't be here because this is too monumental for him and he would be too confused. We'll be reviewing all of the translations I can find of the Dragon Ball Sai manga. So, enjoy that. There will also be a download link. So, things will be going well. Alright, everyone, thanks very much for watching. Until next time, I'm the Philosopher.
I'm the beta male cook.
And we are your geeky gentlemen. And we will be discussing things.